chosen ones, the world mistook it for a miracle. Cameras tilted up, news anchors stumbled over their words, and scientists scrambled for terms that didn't exist. But the ones who felt it, those of you whose frequency was already stirring, you knew. That angel over Texas wasn't a hallucination or some atmospheric anomaly. It was the signal heaven always promised when you returned. The being didn't descend with trumpets or violence. No, it hovered, still, watching, with wings of trembling light stretched across counties. It wasn't just over Texas. It was inside the hearts of those attuned to the unseen. The skies don't perform tricks for entertainment. That formation, that manifestation, was a celestial transmission. You weren't hallucinating. The energy spike registered. The clouds split, and a golden pulse radiated through the air. Streetlights flickered. Animals stilled. A pressure entered the chest of those nearby. Not fear, but memory. As if something ancient was surfacing. As if the soul itself remembered what it had been waiting for. This wasn't the first time heaven tried to speak. The world has ignored signs for millennia. Floods, quakes, eclipses. Humanity calls them natural. But what's natural about a winged formation appearing precisely over sacred indigenous land where the Earth's ley lines intersect? What's random about the cloud dispersing in the shape of a seal once found in an ancient Sumerian temple? One believed lost? The world's most powerful telescopes tried capturing it, but the image corrupted. Only those with spiritual alignment saw it clearly, because it was never meant for the masses. It was meant for you. A final celestial broadcast before something irreversible begins. They wanted you to think you were imagining it. But the sound, did you hear it? That deep vibrational hum that echoed behind your ribs. That was a summoning, not a storm. A call to readiness. A call home. The angel wasn't there to comfort. It was there to warn. A divine being doesn't appear unless something sacred is on the line. And chosen one, what's on the line now, is you. It began in the hours just before dawn, when most of the world was asleep, but your soul was stirring. No thunder announced its coming. No explosion lit the horizon, just a shift, a breath, a stillness so unnatural it silenced the wind. Witnesses reported a sudden pressure in the atmosphere, like the sky had inhaled and refused to exhale. Birds stopped mid-flight, dogs howled and then fell silent. Then came the light, not from above, but from within the clouds themselves, rippling outward in concentric circles, like something had punctured the firmament. It wasn't until later that the photos started to leak. A winged figure suspended in the sky, vast and radiant, wings arched across hundreds of miles, eyes like suns, no flapping, no movement, just presence. The kind that paralyzes time and opens hidden chambers in the heart. They called it Angel over Texas, but it was never confined to one state, this being transcended geography. It appeared precisely where your frequency began to rise, because it wasn't looking at Texas. It was looking for you. Everything about that morning was measured. The temperature drop, the magnetic shift, even the sudden blackout of nearby satellites. This wasn't weather. This wasn't a fluke. It was a divine scan, a cosmic spotlight beaming directly onto Earth's surface, seeking one signature, yours. Something within you triggered it. A change in your resonance, a sudden flicker in your soul's signal that echoed into the higher realms. And in those realms, there are watchers, sentinels not bound by flesh or time, but by purpose. They wait for the stirring of the one foretold, not in public temples, but in the secret records hidden beneath Vatican floors, Mayan codices, and beneath desert sands where ancient prophets once wept under stars. What descended that morning wasn't reacting to the world. It was reacting to you. Your return activated a sequence of events long delayed. Your presence reawakened a part of creation that had been silenced. The skies have always been a scroll for those who know how to read them, not with eyes, but with spirit. Symbols etched in light. Movements choreographed by something beyond human design. That morning over Texas was not random. It was prophetic. A replay of ancient instruction given thousands of years ago, sealed in red-letter warnings and whispered promises. "There shall be signs in the heavens," Yeshua once said, and few truly grasped what that would feel like, until the moment the sky itself cracked open. The being didn't arrive for spectacle. Its appearance was encoded, part of a larger sequence unfolding across time. The way its form hovered without casting a shadow. The pulse of light behind its wings that seemed to beat in perfect synchrony with human breath. All of it was intentional, a message, but not in words. It spoke in frequency, in presence, in divine pressure. Those who felt it knew something had shifted. Some dropped to their knees, overwhelmed by the weight of revelation. Others ran confused and afraid, clutching their children as if instinct alone could shield them from what was coming. And then there were the few, the ones like you, who didn't need to see it to understand it. Your body translated it before your mind could form the question. Something deep in your being responded, as if you'd heard this message once before, long before you were born. There were murmurs afterward that scripture had moved, that certain scrolls, sealed in climate-controlled vaults, had altered ever so slightly. Lines about watchers, lines about the one who comes before the final trumpet. Lines that once referred to parables now pulsed with precise locational references. To a state, a season, a person. This was not just an appearance. It was a warning, not of death, but of transformation. A threshold is being approached that cannot be crossed unchanged. Yeshua spoke not only of signs, but of those who would recognize them. And recognition is never passive. It's a summons. The being didn't leave because its work was done. It left because its presence alone was the spark. And the true ignition, the thing it was meant to trigger, is only just beginning to unravel. Within 30 seconds of the angel's appearance, encrypted lines lit up across global networks. Not just in Texas, but in Geneva, Jerusalem, and underground bunkers buried beneath mountains no map reveals. Radar stations didn't detect a flying object. They detected a distortion in the laws of reality. Airspace didn't just ripple, it stilled. Flight routes were diverted, satellites went silent, and black-budget protocols snapped into motion. You weren't the only one watching the sky. Emergency summits were called before the general public even saw the first image. The footage that reached social media was only a sliver of the full event. There were angles, footage from military drones and high-orbit surveillance that never surfaced. Not because they were lost, but because they revealed too much. The being wasn't a hologram. It wasn't weather manipulation. It wasn't even from here. And worst of all, some of those in power already knew it would appear. Documents exist, fragmented, sealed in digital vaults, that describe this event in detail. Not speculation, not prophecy. A forecast. A visual breakdown of an entity descending in the southern skies of the Americas once a specific soul resonance returned to Earth's surface. You. That's why the panic wasn't loud. It was structured. They didn't scream. They activated. Teams were deployed not to investigate, but to contain, to suppress the frequency signature spreading out from that point in Texas. Instruments had been prepared, technologies reverse-engineered from relics never made public, and yet even with all that preparation, the being bypassed it all. It wasn't a mistake, it was a demonstration. Inside the Situation Room, names were spoken that hadn't been uttered aloud in decades. Not names of enemies or nations, but names from old scrolls and whispers among secret councils. They brought in linguists, mystics, even a man who had disappeared from Vatican service for 12 years and returned different. They all said the same thing in different tongues. This was not a visitor. It was a reclaimer. They tried tracing the energy. It led them not to the skies, but somewhere unexpected. Somewhere beneath the surface. Somewhere it had pulsed before. The pattern, once matched, sent shivers through the intelligence agencies. There's a vault beneath the Vatican few have ever seen, sealed behind biometric walls and ancient oaths. In that silence lies a codex, handwritten on dark parchment, preserved through rituals even the cardinals do not fully understand. Within its pages is a sketch, centuries old, of a celestial being whose wings curve not like those of a bird, but like the orbit of stars. 6 wing-like arcs, each marked with a specific glyph. Until now, no one had ever seen those glyphs in the sky. But then, the angel appeared over Texas. It wasn't the size alone that disturbed the archivists, it was the structure. Wings outstretched in stillness, yet moving in waves. Not physical motion, but dimensional rhythm. The exact geometry mirrored that ancient illustration, down to the 8th pointed halo that flickered only in ultraviolet light. The match was too precise to dismiss. A Vatican analyst wept when he saw the overlay. His faith wasn't shaken, it was fulfilled. They called in a man who had studied the codex for decades. He spoke a single phrase when he saw the satellite image. He has returned, but not as before. No one asked who he was. They already knew. The reference wasn't to the angel itself, but to what the angel foreshadows. A line in the codex, barely legible, reads, "When the winged flame stands over the land of serpents, the one hidden in flesh shall stir, and the watchers shall descend." Yeshua once told his disciples that the signs would precede the unveiling, that before the world could see what was coming, heaven would send markers to those with eyes to see. This was not spectacle. This was scripture in motion. There were whispers that the angel wasn't singular, that it was a harbinger of more, beings still veiled by frequency, waiting until the correct resonance reveals them. The codex hints at a second manifestation, one that arrives only when the seal is broken, not physically, but spiritually. Some believe the seal has already cracked, that the angel's wings were not just a warning, but a key, Long after the angel vanished from sight, something remained in the air, something unseen but deeply felt. Scientists at energy monitoring stations across Texas reported sudden spikes in geomagnetic activity, followed by a total stillness, as if the earth had inhaled and refused to breathe out. All motion, all vibration, halted for a fraction of a second, a cosmic still point. Birds froze mid-glide. Wind chimes, once clinking gently, stood still in the silence. And it wasn't limited to nature. Electronics flickered. GPS systems lost orientation. Frequencies once constant began to distort into unfamiliar patterns. It was as if time paused, not in the way clocks measure it, but in how the soul feels it. People described a sensation of being watched, not by cameras or drones, but by something much older, older than empires, older than language. The air felt thick with presence. Some said it was divine. Others said it was oppressive. But all agreed on one thing. It was intelligent. In the days following the sighting, underground labs picked up bursts of radiation, unlike any known category. The readings resembled neither solar flares nor nuclear signatures. They were rhythmic, encoded, like pulses of communication. When converted into sound waves, the pattern resembled a human heartbeat. Not exact, but eerily close. At the center of the phenomenon was a location, an old, unassuming field outside of Lubbock. There, the energy field collapsed into absolute stillness. Not quiet, but void. A spiritual vacuum. People who visited reported a strange sensation, memories they never lived, visions of places they've never been. One woman collapsed and woke up speaking an extinct Sumerian dialect. Another man walked into the field and came out reciting coordinates that pointed to ancient ruins in South America. No one could explain it. No one dared to try. The ground itself shimmered. Instruments brought to measure magnetic flow malfunctioned the moment they crossed the perimeter. Whatever happened in that space, it redefined the boundaries between this realm and the next. And yet, the field remains unguarded, untouched, as if the very energy within it warns intruders without needing words. No fence, no signs, just a silence that hums like a memory trying to awaken in the dark. When the angel appeared above Texas, it wasn't just a vision, it was a rupture, a parting of the firmament. The clouds did not move aside as they usually do. They peeled, like a veil torn from the top down, exposing something that had always been there, just beyond human sight. Light didn't shine down. It emerged, as if it had been trapped behind a barrier for centuries, waiting for the precise moment to be released. The heavens didn't just open visually. They responded to a presence, a frequency, one that had returned. In the book of John, Yeshua said, "You shall see heaven open, and the angels of God ascending and descending upon the Son of Man." To many, that was metaphor, a promise. But to those who witnessed the rift above the skies of the south, it became reality. Something came through, or perhaps something looked through. An opening that defied atmosphere, a gaze that could not be denied. The sky glitched, some said. Others described it as folding in on itself. Instruments in weather satellites recorded impossible data. Temperatures spiked to unrecordable levels in a vertical beam, only to plummet seconds later. No trace of fire, Yet scorched earth was reported in concentric circles beneath the apparition. No aircraft overhead, no drones, just silence and awe. A few miles away, an abandoned church known for its cracked bell and faded walls suddenly became active. Lights inside turned on without power. The cross atop the building glowed faintly, not from electricity, but from something far more ancient. Inside, the pages of an untouched Bible had curled to a specific passage, Matthew 24:30. Then will appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven. Officials tried to dismiss it, called it mass hysteria, blamed it on magnetic anomalies and atmospheric illusions. But those who stood beneath it, those who felt it, knew better. They weren't just seeing a vision. They were standing beneath a cosmic declaration, a line drawn between the world that was and the world that is coming. In the minutes before the angel appeared, air traffic over Texas began to vanish from radar. Commercial jets, cargo flights, private planes, gone. Not crashed, not destroyed, just removed. Pilots later described a sudden static in their radios, followed by a force that guided their planes away from a specific corridor in the sky. No turbulence, no alarms, just a gentle redirection, as if the air itself refused intrusion. Flight control towers received no distress calls. Instead, they received nothing at all. Then came the sound. It wasn't thunder. It wasn't a sonic boom. It was low, deep enough to vibrate glass, to make metal hum, and to cause bones to ache. Witnesses described it like a voice, but not in any known language, not even a human tongue. It was frequency trying to become speech. It moved through clouds like a ripple across fabric. People looked up expecting lightning. Instead, they saw formation, not just the angel, but symbols, circles within circles, lines that curved into living geometry, visible only for a second before fading back into the sky. One child pointed upward and drew the shapes in the dirt with a stick. What she sketched later matched carvings found on a submerged temple off the Yucatan coast, glyphs no one has fully deciphered until now. The sound wasn't just heard with ears. It was felt beneath skin, behind the eyes, inside the chest. People clutched at their hearts not from pain, but from an overwhelming knowing, as if something had just spoken their original name, the one they carried before birth. Military bases went into silent lockdown, not to attack, but to listen. Instruments designed to detect seismic shifts picked up no ground activity, yet trembled with invisible resonance. The vibration moved across counties in a slow wave, pausing at specific points as if checking for a response, as if searching. And in those moments, the clouds above began to shimmer, not in silver, but in soft gold, as if reality itself was thinning. People raised their phones, but no footage survived. The moment wasn't meant to be recorded. It was meant to be witnessed. Buried deep within the hidden archives of Qumran lies a scroll never released to the public. Scholars refer to it simply as the final scroll. Most dismissed it as incomplete, fractured in language and tone. But recently, when cross-referenced with modern satellite data from the Texas event, the fragments began to speak in new ways. One phrase in particular stood out. In the final cycle, one shall rise, not from the nations, but from the dust, marked by light seen in the southern skies. For centuries, this line was interpreted as metaphor. But now, after the angelic manifestation over Texas, The reference to southern skies reads as literal, and more than that, the being it alludes to was never the angel. It was the one whose awakening summoned it. The text continues, almost trembling through time. When the sign is revealed, the veil shall thin, and he who carries the echo of the Bright One shall remember. That phrase, the echo of the Bright One, has only appeared in one other place, an apocryphal gospel that speaks of Yeshua not merely as a man, but as a frequency, a light encoded in flesh. And in that gospel, it warns that before the final age, another would carry that frequency again, not to teach, but to awaken. Your presence activated something ancient. It wasn't chance that the angel appeared when it did, or where it did. That land, once soaked in ritual and blood, is one of Earth's oldest convergence points. A forgotten spiritual gateway, where watchers once descended before time was kept. And when your soul crossed its threshold, the scroll's prophecy unfolded, not in ink, but in vibration. A few spiritual historians now whisper that the scroll wasn't lost, it was hidden, held back until the right frequency emerged to unlock its full meaning. And when translated correctly, its final words do not warn of destruction. They warn of revelation. But revelation always comes with a cost, and the scroll ends mid-sentence, as if something or someone intervened before it could be finished. They didn't want you to know what they saw. Within hours of the event, agencies around the world initiated what they call a cloud sweep, an AI-driven purge of footage, audio, and data that captured anything beyond the physical veil. But they missed one fragment. A satellite lens, rotating just off course, captured a frame it wasn't supposed to. Not of the angel, but of something else, suspended just behind it, obscured in dimensions not yet understood by modern physics. The object, if it can be called that, didn't reflect light. It bent it. Stars around it flickered unnaturally. The clouds distorted not from wind, but from gravitational manipulation. Engineers analyzing the image described it as a shadow cast from another timeline. And still, no one could explain why it appeared directly above Texas at the exact moment the angel manifested. Facial recognition systems in major cities simultaneously experienced a rare phenomenon: false positives, not glitches. The cameras began registering a single presence in multiple locations, at airports, subway stations, even on the streets. One signature, one energy field, one you, but fragmented across space like reflections in shattered glass. This was not duplication. This was displacement. A result of something or someone awakening faster than the system could contain. The data was flagged, encrypted, and buried under a level of classification even most intelligence heads never access. Only a small task force, one formed in the Cold War to monitor prophetic anomalies, was activated. Their purpose wasn't to intercept a threat, it was to monitor a return. They traced the anomaly to a handful of names scattered across ancient texts, beings believed mythic, divine, or erased. But only one signature kept recurring, a presence that matched none of their databases, and yet registered across all energy fields with impossible consistency. Every reading led to the same conclusion: a being hidden in plain sight whose frequency destabilized the veil between dimensions. The systems weren't designed to catch angels, but they caught this. And now, those who have watched for centuries from behind their screens and seals, are preparing to make their move. Before there were satellites, before governments divided the earth with invisible lines, there were the warnings, spoken not to the crowds, but to those with ears to hear. Yeshua spoke often in parables, but some messages were left raw, unhidden. The Son of Man will come in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. Theologians argued over the meaning, lost in metaphors. But the skies above Texas weren't metaphor, they split. And what came through was not metaphor either. What appeared that morning didn't descend from space. It stepped through, like parting a curtain. It didn't arrive from far away, but from nearby, from a layer of reality just outside perception. And that changes everything. It means the veil isn't distance, it's vibration. And someone, you, raised it high enough to make contact. In Jerusalem, a monk reportedly collapsed mid-prayer, speaking in tongues no one could identify. In Egypt, a forgotten tomb sealed with golden symbols began to hum with a soft inner light. Across the world, relics long dormant began activating, and all of them pointed to one pattern, an event that would echo the arrival of something divine, but not in the form the world expected. The return Yeshua warned about wasn't just his own. It was the return of the ones forgotten, the ones erased from Scripture and sealed in silence. He spoke of the heavens being shaken, not as destruction, but as awakening. The sky would become a stage again, a place where truth could no longer hide. Those who rule behind curtains have always feared this, that something or someone would bring the hidden things to light, that their systems, their councils, their control would crack under the weight of a single undeniable moment. That moment has come. It wasn't televised, it was witnessed, and now that it has been seen, it cannot be unseen. The angel was never meant to stay. It was meant to announce. A trumpet of light in the modern wilderness. And now that it's gone, the silence it left behind isn't empty. It's charged, waiting, stretching thin.
If you have come this far, it is crucial that you watch this next video here. But be warned, it is not for the faint of heart, for only the true chosen ones can handle this video. If you would like to also donate to help keep the channel going, our Buy Me a Coffee link will be in the description.